The quiet, cold morning has finally arrived. In the courtyard outside, the gallows have done their work, and the exhausted crowd is already dispersing, trudging home to sleep off the adrenaline of the night. But while the town empties, one man walks against the flow of traffic. His name is Bowen, and he is heading purposefully toward the county jail. Inside sits the sheriff. He's been up all night managing a highly volatile situation, and right now he is paralyzed by exhaustion. He doesn't even hear the footsteps approaching his desk. Bowen steps into the doorway and quietly announces that he has come to turn himself in for murder. The sheriff is baffled. Bowen carries no weapon. He has no blood on his clothes. In fact, the only man dead here is the killer the state just legally hanged outside. To understand how Bowen killed a man without touching him, we have to look back to the day the original murderer was caught, weeks earlier. The town didn't want to wait for a trial. A dark-browed, furious mob flooded the streets outside the jail. The sheriff, heavily outnumbered, hesitated at the doors. Someone in the crowd raised a closed fist toward the sky, dangling a rope. They were minutes away from tearing the jail open and hanging the prisoner themselves. Then, a single figure stepped between the mob and the doors. It was Bowen. The crowd went dead silent, because everyone knew Bowen was the grieving fiancé of the murdered woman. He looked out at his neighbors and begged them to stop. He told them an extrajudicial lynching would put an everlasting stain on the fair name of their town. He promised them the law would handle the killer properly. The crowd listened, and they went home. Bowen saved the murderer's life that afternoon, but trusting the legal system instead of immediate vengeance soon became the catalyst for his psychological unraveling. As the trial concluded and the death sentence was handed down, a strange shift occurred. The town's rage cooled into guilt over sending a man to the gallows. The condemned man had money, and he used it to sway opinion. Petitions for a pardon began circulating. They were headed by the local clergy, and soon nearly every man and woman in town had signed their names. Bowen was entirely isolated. He watched the exact same people who had screamed for blood a month prior suddenly champion mercy, eagerly erasing his bride's memory to satisfy their own consciences. He realized firsthand that public justice is malleable. It is driven by emotion, easily manipulated by whoever speaks the loudest or spends the most money. The system he protected had abandoned him. Bowen understood that if the scales were going to balance, he could no longer rely on the town, courts, or conventional morality to do it for him. This brings us to the suffocating tension of the night before the hanging. While the town slept, the local telegraph office was completely silent, isolated from the growing panic outside. The sheriff, finally cracking under the immense weight of the public petitions, drafted a desperate, trembling message to the governor, asking to delay the execution until the last possible moment. He ran the message to the telegraph office, handing it directly to the night operator, Bowen. In a staggering twist of bureaucratic irony, the state had unknowingly handed the literal power of life and death over the killer directly to the victim's grieving lover. The sheriff left. Bowen stood alone in the heavy silence of the office, holding the paper that would save the life of the man who ruined his. He looked down at the brass telegraph key on his desk. With a few taps, the machine could cure a fatal situation or ensure it. Bowen made his choice. He did not send the sheriff's desperate plea to the governor. Instead, he transmitted a completely fabricated message, ensuring the governor remained ignorant of the town's change of heart and buried the truth in the dark. The physical act of the murder was nothing more than a series of silent, calculated taps in an empty room, which brings us back to the gray light of the following morning. The sheriff stares at Bowen in absolute disbelief, asking what he could possibly be turning himself in for. For murder, Bowen replies. But Bowen knows no jury could ever convict him. He committed an assassination of pure omission, leaving behind zero physical evidence, only the invisible trail of an electrical current he chose not to send. He achieved the perfect revenge, not by breaking the law with violence, but by stepping aside, staying silent, and letting the cold, unstoppable machinery of the state do his killing for him.
Want to hear more horrifying, Revenge real stories? Some stories are too dark to forget. Subscribe to Storybook for more horror and revenge real stories.